All right, I think we can start. Welcome everyone here already for this webinar of the Media Freedom Rapid Response, a European coalition of media and press freedom organizations that defends the rights of journalists and media across the continent. Today we're joined by three journalists and experts from Serbia to talk about the situation there, given that we're commemorating this weekend both the one-year anniversary of the collapse of the canopy in the station in Novi Sad, which started a wave of student-led protests across the country and started this new wave as well of attacks on media and radically changed the landscape for media in Serbia, or at least we will hear today the views of our three speakers on this. But as well, this weekend it was the annual day to end impunity for crimes against journalists, 2 November, a day established to ask attention for the rising number of attacks on journalists and the need for joint efforts to investigate and prosecute these attacks. If you're in the audience and you would like to ask a question, please do so in the chat or reserve those for the end. And I'll let each speaker introduce themselves at the first question asked. Thank you all for joining. Natasa, I want to ask you first to start, and perhaps if you're okay to give us a brief introduction into the events of 1 November last year. And I also understood you were at the commemoration this weekend. Please tell us a bit more about how it was and what the situation is like now.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for inviting me to be part of this webinar. My name is Natasa Kovačev. I'm a journalist, for the moment a freelance journalist, actually, from Novi Sad in Serbia. I have worked for various news outlets and media, most recently for Al Jazeera Balkans, that was, let's say, shut down in July, in the mid of July. Unfortunately. So as for the event from the 1st November last year, it was actually an event that I can say changed the face of Serbia in the last year. And it provoked or brought the biggest gatherings, biggest protests, and biggest social uprising that we saw since the early 2000s. Or the late 1990s. So yes, it actually brought up all the students from, or most of the students from Serbia, who blocked their faculties, asking for 4 or 5 main demands from the institutions. Actually, their main demand is that the institutions should start working. Because in Serbia right now, we do not have independent institutions that are making some decisions and working as they should work in public interest. We have, how people call it, actually captured institutions, because everything depends on one man's will, and actually the ruling party. Their decisions are the decisions that these institutions also obey. So the students and also the citizens who support them ask for the institutions to start working. So this last year, from a journalist perspective, was very demanding as well. We had a lot of work. You can imagine we have to cover all these protests that are ongoing, all the stories that are developing from day to day, but also it became more challenging from the safety perspective, because as for example in Novi Sad, we at the moment do not know how the protest will end, no matter how it starts, you know, whether it starts as a peaceful gathering, as a commemoration like this Saturday, we do not know how it will end.
Yeah.
We had these situations that these gatherings ended with police brutality against students and citizens, but also against journalists who were there to cover the story. This Saturday, the 1-year anniversary ended peacefully, but I have to mention that students decided to end it 1 hour earlier than they previously planned, because of the safety protocols or because of the safety risks.
Yeah.
They had information that the number of policemen was like rising, that there were policemen gathering in several spots, and also got the information that there might be some, how they call it, the unexpected elements, you know, people who
Yeah.
would be like put in the protest to
Derail it.
yes, to start the mess happening.
Yeah.
And that is why they decided to end the protest early, not the protests, sorry, the commemoration gathering early. And I was there at the bridge when I think around 6:30 they announced the 16 minutes of silence and said that after the silence it's over. So people were very confused,
Yeah.
didn't know what was happening, but later on the students explained that these safety risks were actually the reason, because they didn't want to be responsible for all these people who gathered in Novi Sad.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you. We will talk more about the impact on media in a bit. I was just curious, Dušan, if you could explain a bit more next what the role of media has been in this year, both in covering the protest, but also in the fallout of this collapse of the canopy. What was the role media played in unveiling the corruption and the situation around it? Yeah, thanks. And please introduce yourself as well.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. I'm Dušan Mladenović. I'm an international editor at N1. And unlike Natasa, I'm not covering the protests from the streets as much, mostly for the international media or for CNN. We are affiliate of CNN, and we also have companies in Bulgaria and so on. So I usually do stuff for them. But I can say that, you know, media in Serbia is deeply polarized. You have independent media which cover the protests on everyday basis, and you know, we cover it fair and square, and show what the situation is really like. And then you have pro-governmental media, which is like 95% of all the media in Serbia, which call people who protest the blockaders, terrorists, colored revolution, and so on. They are using the same narrative as the government. And that is something that has been seen in the last couple of months by the EU institutions, and we could see that in the resolution of European Parliament, but also in the report from the European Commission that is published just as we speak. So I can just say what European Commission said in the last year about the public broadcaster, that in 2024, 94% of airtime in central news of the public broadcaster covered the ruling majority against 6% of airtime for the opposition parties. And in other media, it's even worse. You know, opposition don't get anything. People who are on protests don't get anything. Students don't get anything, and they're portrayed as someone who wants to destroy the country, to economically push it into I don't know, in complete you know, make it obsolete completely, and that is happening all the time. And because we cover the protests, we are also branded as terrorists, as foreign agents, mercenaries, and so on, by the highest officials in the country, by the president himself, who literally called us terrorists several times, criminals, you know, especially N1 and Nova, he sees us as criminals, working for a criminal, for an owner that is a criminal. So that is what we face on everyday basis. And then you have people who cover it from the streets, reporters, producers, that are constantly attacked by the people in the street, and not just by the people who support the government, but also by police, by special forces, by police in civil clothes, and so on. So that is what we face on everyday basis.
Yeah, and the situation has worsened rapidly over the past year, as we've personally been able to observe. And I think that also interesting in this combination of panelists, Verica, you work for a much smaller outlet, a regional outlet compared to N1, for example. Could you speak a bit about your experience in covering the protest this year? How has your work changed since last year, and how do you continue to hold power to account as a journalist under these circumstances?
It's a question for me.
Yes, yeah.
It's Marinčić. I'm editor-in-chief in small local media in Medija. It's last year. It's very hard for us and for all journalists in Serbia, but we work for 5 years, and from beginning we have problems with the government. And we have 2 journalists in our small newsroom, and we are on protest all the time. Well, in our city is very hard to work as a journalist, and we have lots of problems. For example, they are they don't have any I'm sorry.
Say it in Serbian, we can help you.
Okay.
If you're stuck.
Nemamo nikakve pozive za bilo kakve događaje, niti kakvo razumevanje za naš rad. Imamo samo probleme sa funkcionisanjem u izveštavanju. To je konstanta.
Okay, so she wants to say that they don't get invited to events that are organized by the local authorities usually. So what they do get is actually criticism and threats and šta si rekla, uvrede, je li tako?
Tako je.
And they get assaulted actually all the time. So that is how they function.
And when you cover protests now, what kind of situations do you face, and how do you protect you and your journalists against that?
In our city in India, covering protests is more safely than in rest of Serbia. And we have one situation when the Russian intelligence service had claimed us for organized Serbian Maidan of November the 1st. Our media is on that list. And people in India is Russophiles, and we have lots of problem because of that. Our president, Mr. Vučić, said also that we are a terrorist, and etc., etc. While in biggest cities in Serbia, Belgrade or Novi Sad, we are with our colleagues from bigger media, and we go together on these protests. It's very hard to be saved in this protest, but I don't know how to say, moramo izdržati.
Što moramo?
Moramo izdržati.
Oh, we have to hold on. Yes.
Yes, you have to keep going. You want to keep going. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and we see this across the board, right? Because the Mapping Media Freedom Platform registered over 181 alerts of attacks on the press since 1 November, which is a record number. We called it a press freedom crisis, both during a mission in April, during which we also addressed the European Commission, but also the authorities in Serbia, of course. And 44 of those alerts were physical attacks, any journalists being physically injured after direct attacks. Natasa, can you talk a bit more about the impact of this, both on yourself, but also among your colleagues? How does this impact journalists in Serbia at the moment?
Well, it impacts us in every way, you know. So first, there is instability of your job, you know, because for many media, this situation is very difficult. First, especially if we talk, I mean, Dušan can talk about it more maybe, but these media like N1 and Nova S are constantly under, especially now, under this question of whether they will prevail, you know, with the changing of the ownership and everything. For the smaller media, that's also very difficult to cope right now, because you cannot count on any money, any support, financial support from the public budget. And also now at this moment there is financial difficulty because of the global situation and withdrawal of this foreign money that was actually there for them until I think January this year, no, or the end of the last year. So actually now media are financially very in bigger problems. And from the other side, on the other hand, you know, there is this question that I mentioned, the safety issue, because you are not, I don't know how to explain. It seems like we are constantly reporting from a crisis situation, you know.
Yeah.
You know, there is crisis reporting, and you know what are the rules and how to behave and what is the equipment you should wear in these kind of situations. And now here this is what we're facing, because I mentioned these protests that start as a peaceful protest and end completely differently. So this is what is happening. And a few days ago, I was talking to my colleague who works for a news agency, and he came to this commemoration on Saturday wearing everything, you know, in his backpack, like a helmet, I don't know, a gas mask, the safety vest, everything. And I asked him, why are you doing this? Because I don't know how this will end, you know, how this day will look in a few hours. And this is what is happening, because what we faced here is police brutality. They don't choose who are they attacking, you know, with their sticks, whether these are senior citizens, students, or journalists. We had the situation on September the 5th in Novi Sad during this big protest in front of the Faculty of Philosophy, that there was so much tear gas. I never saw that amount of tear gas in my life. That was one thing. And the other thing, they actually attacked two of the journalists who were reporting on the ground. Nevertheless, these journalists, I mean, even though these journalists showed them their accreditation, yelled that they are journalists, they wore these yellow vests that said press on them. So, you know, it was very obvious, but they didn't mind. And what I wanted to tell you, I'm not sure. So now I lost my thought. But this is actually what is happening, you know. And what Verica also stated, that we do not get invited in these events. That's what's happening for I don't know how long now, a year for sure, because they are afraid that independent journalists will ask them some questions, you know. They want to escape those questions, so we don't get invited. And when we do come to these events, because we find out when something is happening, it's very, very awkward, you know. These situations are very unpleasant, and you get, instead of the answers to your questions, you actually get insulted and called terrorists. Verica even got evicted physically from the municipal assembly, yes, iz Skupštine grada. So, I mean, these are the situations on the ground, actually.
Yeah, this is really worrying. And you already spoke also not only about the safety attacks, but also by the direct. I mean, media are financially struggling, of course, everywhere. But in Serbia, we have seen also direct interference with the financial income sources of media. Dušan, can you talk a bit more about that, and also about everything that has happened at N1 in that regard?
Yeah, so in February, President Vučić said that some of us will be fired at N1, some of us will be taken to be press officers in their ministries and so on. And at that time, we didn't really pay too much attention to it. We thought it's a joke because he does this all the time. And then during the summer, it started to, to move. Things started to move. And at the end of August, we heard an intercepted conversation between the CEO of our parent company and the CEO of state-owned telecom, where they actually speak that they will fire our director, make us smaller, divide us, probably sell us to someone, or even close us. So ever since then, we are, coming to work not knowing if we are going to come to work the next day, or if some of us will be fired. For now, nothing has happened regarding N1, but regarding Nova, they do have new additional people in charge of their, let's say, director board. So we are waiting to see what will happen with N1. The government, of course, denies everything, but we did hear the CEO of state-owned telecom that we will finally be independent when something happens. So they they see us as their opponents and not as the media. They see us as their political opponents, and they want to destroy us. I mean, that's the easiest way to do that, is to destroy someone. So every day we face pressures, political pressure, financial pressure, and it affects, it affects our work, everything we do on an everyday basis. And plus, the people that go on, to cover the protest, they are physically exhausted, they are emotionally exhausted, because, you're seeing all this stuff. I mean, when you go on the street and you see that the supporters of the government sing a song to a mother who lost her child, a song, called "The Mother Comes to Look for Her Son," it brings anger and so much emotion to everyone, especially the people that are covering the protests. So even though you have to be neutral, you are emotionally hit every day. And and it happens. I mean, I don't know, I'm not covering it as much from the streets, but I know how people feel because I speak to them on an everyday basis. And when you have all these I don't know, financial blackmails, political blackmails, and then you go through all of this emotionally, it really leaves an effect on every one of us.
Yeah, you feel this. And just to give context, you were referring, right, to the this weekend after the commemoration, one of the mothers who lost her son in Novi Sad started a hunger strike, and then yes, and I think this is also what we discussed a lot in April, right? That a lot of journalists feel very exposed and left alone, and that apart from the physical damage and the financial damage, there is this emotional impact. Can you talk a bit more about the ways, what support is available to you, either through the unions? Are you making use of what is made available European-wide in terms of protection, and what do you need?
Well, I know some of us, some of the reporters are going to, are seeking psychological help, and the company is offering them that kind of help. When it comes to all of us others, we are trying to get, the backup from Europe. I had several talks with European members of the European Parliament, but also members of the UN representatives, which cover the media situation, the rapporteurs. So we had a couple of, let's say, 1 hour discussions with them, and we told them what we need from them to help us. And to pressure the government to first let us do our work freely, and then we also had these discussions in which way they can all help us, but it's we can't do much more than ask for help
Yeah.
from them to put the pressure on the government, because what the government is doing, it's not normal. You know, it's still not the level of Belarus and Russia, but it's leaning that way, and it's not good, and it's worse. In the last 12 months, it got worse, a lot worse.
And Verica, you are in a smaller outlet. What kind of protection do you have access to, both in terms of legal, physical, psychological?
Psychological help we have for a year. And we have some cameras and electrical brave, Bože, kako se kaže?
Blocks. Electrical
blocks.
From Press Unlimited organization, and that's all.
Yeah.
And there is nothing much for us, but our colleagues from biggest newsrooms are our biggest support, and we have only our colleagues and that cameras and locks. We spoke with our with European Union, from our people who give us the money for some business in our newsrooms, and it's only stay on words. Nothing's happened after that. Police in India is polite, but nothing more from that is not happening. That's it. We have no colleagues in India. We have 16 media in India, but no one stay on our side. They work against us.
Mm-hmm.
There's a pro-government media, and they are getting money from public budget, and that's all.
And domestically, one of our viewers also asked the question, what is the role of the permanent working group for safety of journalists? And because I also know from many of the cases that it's not only more and more cases, more and more attacks, limited access to protection, but also police is not often investigating, or we heard from a lot of journalists that you file complaints and you don't get a response. Could one of you speak a bit more about the role of the working group?
Well, I can try, and then you can, both of you can add something. Actually, this working group it's good that it exists, and from what I've heard in the last year or more than a year, they also have problems communicating among themselves, you know, because in this permanent group you have people who come from the journalist side, and you have people who come from the prosecutor's office, from the judiciary system itself, from the police, and now they have problems in communication. Earlier they could exchange information about every case of the attack on journalists, but as I heard, there was one event, a public event, where the public prosecutor said that their job wasn't to protect journalists, but to protect the state.
Wow. Okay.
And that was actually, I think, that was the point when these people from the journalist side that are working in this group understood that, you know, what's happening. So that I think maybe the communication was not so good even before that, but it was definitely better than today. So they, I think that they still have these meetings, but I'm not sure what are the results and what are the effects, because from what we see on the ground, actually the situation is getting worse, and there is this impunity of the attacks against journalists, because a very small amount of the cases even goes to the court, and when it does, it's only like a few of them that get results in favor of the journalist. Verica had a lot of these cases. I think she is one of the best examples here, unfortunately, in Serbia. So what I remember from talking to her is that when there is when a person who is not a politician or who is not in power is responsible for attacking her or her colleagues, these are the only cases that get resolved, you know.
Yeah.
And when you have the situation where the attacker is a person who has some influence, you know, you never see it. You never see it
Relentless.
coming. Yeah.
Do you want to add a bit about that, Verica?
The OEBS not so long ago organized some kind of meetings with prosecutors and police, and I get angry because prosecutors said that journalists are making up all these problems, and the statistic of hits of journalists are not so bad, and that the member in journalism card can get everyone who wants. And then I ask, you want to tell me that one man stand on street and in one hand have a journalism card, and other hand there is SNS card, and everyone wants to be a journalist, and then making up situations. They said yes, and they are humiliated women journalists because they said we have that kind of will to expose women and our problems like they are hate women, and that's horrible. And then I went from that meeting. I don't want to listen something like that, because head of our state tell me that is everything a lie. But situation on kako se kaže teren, narode, mozak mi je stao.
In the field. Situation in the
Yes,
field.
is completely different, and that's the reason why all the people who want to believe in that words are hitting journalists much more.
Yeah.
The government thinks we are a liar.
Yeah. Yeah. And this pressure, of course, builds a lot of other, if not, then also encourages other attacks, right?
Yes, of course.
And Dušan, you already mentioned earlier, so there's been, I think, different levels.
Yeah, if I can just add to plastically explain how it works with a working group. So I had a case where a first neighbor of mine who lives just above me first attacked my kids and said that he will make our life a living hell. And one day he went on his balcony and he shouted that he will kill me. So I went into the police and I said what happened, and the police said, go and take a coffee, we'll come in 2 hours. And then I called the TV and said what happened, and they called the Independent Association of Journalists, who then went to the police, and suddenly there was a team who could speak to me. And then they said, why didn't you say you're a journalist? And I said, what's the difference between a citizen and a journalist if someone, is telling that he will kill me? So the same guy is now, we are having a trial on the court, and the court actually on April decided that he should be in custody. And ever since then, he's not in custody. So the police is not doing their job, and they do know where he lives. So he's not hiding. He's publicly out there. So for 7 months, he's living free as nothing has happened. So that's how the system works, And the same guy, when he attacked my kids, I asked the police if he has a gun, and then they said he doesn't have. 2 days later, in a report he gave to the prosecution, he said that 2 days after that, he gave the gun with 45 bullets to the police. Yeah. And so that's how the system works. I think the police is the part of the system that is not doing their jobs. And of course, then you have a really slow judicial system that is also giving a chance for all those who attack us or threat us to live freely. Yeah.
And this is incredibly horrible to experience for your family, I can imagine. And I've been hearing a lot of these stories in the past months. Before we go more to this aspect of the international attention for this issue of security, like what's for you as journalists, what's enabling you to keep going? Like, are there colleagues of yours that are quitting the profession? Why do you, I mean, Natasa as well, you've already seen the closure of 2 outlets. What is keeping you going in this work at the moment?
Well, the fact that I think it is very important to be a journalist at this moment in Serbia, because more and more independent media is closing down, and if we let it happen and if we don't do this job anymore, then what will we have left, you know? Especially for me coming from Novi Sad, where everything started, and this city is actually in focus for a year now, you know, especially in the focus of these highly ranked politicians, the president himself. We hear all the time that he's announcing that he will have a big rally in Novi Sad, but it never happens, you know. So the last information was that he will hold a rally on November the 9th in Novi Sad, so in a few days. But from what I'm hearing today is that this will also be cancelled, probably.
Yeah. And what?
Well, I'm not sure. I mean, the unofficial information, official informations is that he cannot gather enough people, because now they have problems, you know, that people, even for money, because they always come for money, they're not willing to do it because the situation is getting so crazy. You know, I suppose that people don't want to go and sing these songs to a mother who started a hunger strike even for money. You know, it's completely insane. So I'm not sure. I'm saying that these are unofficial information that I'm getting.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure that this will actually happen, but we will see. So I think Novi Sad is, as I mentioned, in focus, and the repression is very high here from all sides. And I think it's very important to stay a journalist and to follow this, to cover this story.
Verica, do you want to, what keeps you going in India? What's despite, I mean, you're under incredible pressure also financially and with all these cases with limited access.
We work in public interest, and that's our business, and we will never quit. I'm a journalist for more than 20 years, and all my life I work from public issues, and we'll never stop. Well, money is a problem, but in journalism there is no money, and we very well know that. India is between Belgrade and Novi Sad. Everything what happened in Belgrade or Novi Sad, we go there to well, our public must know what happened there, because there is so many closed media in this town, and we work for our people. Also, from Belgrade to Novi Sad, or from Novi Sad to Belgrade, there is huge columns of students are walking from in this town. Our government left students to sleep outside, and people in India saw that, and there is we are ashamed about that, but we try to ispraviti. Ne mogu Nataša.
To fix it. We're trying to fix it.
That problems. We are claimed as organized, that we are organized all students protests in all Serbia. Our major of India told that me and my colleague are organized all the students protest all around the Serbia, and we have problem because of that. But now is same picture, but another opinion about what happened in those towns and in India. Well, we must work hard, but I think we will success in that.
You will persevere.
Yes, I think so.
And Dušan, you told us that you have already, because for some context, I think for some of the viewers who've been following Serbia less, initially there was difficulty in getting attention at the European level for just how bad the situation was in Serbia. I think in the last months, we've seen the situation slightly improve with several resolutions by the European Parliament. And just now during this webinar, a new European Commission report on Serbia was presented. Yeah. Could you speak a bit about the parts on media?
Yeah, so I already mentioned RTS, the public service, but it also says political and economic influence on the media, including on editorial policy, is a source of serious concern. So there were recommendations that Serbia did not implement since last year. So there are some recommendations for this year as well to implement the new media laws in a way that it respects both their letter and spirit. So they're basically saying it can't be just letters on a paper, it really needs to be done, including the independence of the media regulator and amend the laws to align with European Media Freedom Act and with related European standards. So it also says that the country needs to strengthen the protection and safety of journalists, ensuring that high-level officials stop verbal attacks on journalists involving intimidation, stigmatization, and delegitimization, and swiftly follow up any threats or cases of physical and verbal violence. So those are the recommendations in this latest report that they are just presenting in Brussels. So I think Europe is very well aware of what is happening here. It's really a detailed, the resolution of the European Parliament was really detailed itself, but this report is too. It also mentioning what happened to N1. It's that I mentioned, the leaked phone conversation between the CEO of a private media group and majority state-owned telecom, and they find it very, very concerning. So they are also mentioning this in the report of European Commission. I think it's happening for the first time that it's so detailed in explaining on what's happening in the media sphere here in Serbia. And I think, of course, the fall of Canopy was the first thing that they noticed, and everything that happened after that. But I think the March 15th and the use of a sonic weapon was a moment that woke up not only Brussels, but the rest of the world as well. UN got involved. They sent several teams here to speak with the authorities. Authorities, of course, deny any use of sonic weapon. But and then, of course, the violence that happened during the summer, it also came into the spotlight of European and world media. And, you know, people say that it's not good when a country gets in the media spotlight, especially a small country like Serbia. But from a journalistic perspective, you know, the world is finally seeing what is happening. I think they were blind for too many years, and they closed their eyes on everything that the government did. and everything that we experienced in past 10, 12 years, it's just exploding, and it's the right time for the world to see what's happening here in Serbia.
Yeah, I fully agree. And Natasa, perhaps to close as well, or Verica, either of you, what is needed from the international, and particularly other European states, given that Serbia is also a candidate country, what kind of steps should be taken to end this crisis for media and journalists in Serbia?
Well, I was just listening to Dušan and what he was reading from this report of the European Commission. I was in Brussels in September, in the mid of September, and I came home as a pessimist, I have to say it, because what I understood is that there will be no harsh reaction from the European Commission, because, I mean, I can understand it on one hand, but geopolitics is still their main concern, especially at this moment. So I'm glad that we are hearing and listening and reading the more detailed report and the harsher report on what is happening in Serbia. But actually, I'm not optimistic that we will see some concrete steps, because I think geopolitics is still like in focus for the European Union. And that is what I saw from the foreign journalists who came also to Novi Sad to report on the anniversary gathering, and what they told me, that they came here to see whether these big student-led protests could change like the path that Serbia is, where it's going, where it's heading, because now they see that as a country that is very close to Putin and to China on the other hand. So they wanted to see whether these protests could like diverse it or lean it more towards the EU. And this is how, the world looks at us right now.
Yeah.
And it's understandable from their point of view, but from our point of view, it's very much needed for people to understand that, this is what is happening on the ground.
Yeah.
We don't have functioning institutions. We do not have any kind of stability or safety for journalists here, and not only for journalists. Now what's happening, we don't have it for citizens who go out the streets to like speak their mind. If they're against what ruling party is saying and what they're doing, they can be arrested, they can stay in custody for many months now, and there are no rules anymore. So I think it's very important for people to understand that what is happening with the rule of law, in this country at the moment. So that not only geopolitics is important, but also like this micro level is also very important for people living here.
Yeah, and it also becomes a playbook for other contexts, right? Yeah.
Yes.
We have to wrap up here, but I want to thank you all a lot for participating. And M4R will continue to provide emergency support, so please also continue to spread the word, but also the advocacy. We are hoping we're standing in solidarity with you all on the front lines, doing this incredible work, and really indeed like bringing this, as you say so well, like bringing this local level, you're not just a pin on this chessboard between Putin and Europe, but I mean it's really about something much more fundamental. So we will continue to support with that, and thanks everyone for joining today, and wish you all the best and support in this important work you do.
Thank you very much.